And I'm very excited to share this with you all and with this US tour. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited.
The music is going to be...
Thank you.
The music, as you said, is going to be a combination of earlier work and music from the new album, and of course electronica. And I want to talk a little bit about that because Electronica 1 is Grammy nominated for Best Dance and Electronic Album.
Thank you.
And I know when, I have to tell you, I met Jean Michel probably about this time last year, maybe, we had a conversation.
Yes, even,
and when he asked if I would do this, I was delighted to, as you can see, to hang out with him because he's cool. But when I met him today, when he arrived, he told me that he'd been in Shanghai 3 days ago, and then he flew to Paris, and then he flew here, and he drove here from the airport, and then tomorrow he's going down to Nam, and then he's going back somewhere else, and then he's coming back for the Grammys, and I was like, this guy's my hero, you know? So congratulations on the nomination, obviously.
Thank you.
And I want to talk a little bit about that project as well. Are we okay for time, everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about that project because when we first met, that's what we talked about. And you had mentioned a little bit in the earlier part of this conversation about working with Air. And some of the other people, the collaborators that you worked with, you ended up doing 2 albums because you did so much. And I know it took you a long time doing all these collaborations. But you also used a mix of old technology and new technology. As you mentioned, with the Air song, you went back and dug out a lot of old equipment. And I know that you've mentioned in the past that the new technology and the access to unlimited tracks is fantastic. But the thing that I read that really sort of spoke to me was you were talking about how a painter has 4 tubes of paint. And if they have 4 tubes of paint, then they know what they're working with and they have somewhere to start and somewhere to go and something to create. But when you have 1 million colors, by the time you've got to the 1,000,000th, you've forgotten what the first one was. So in the bringing this into the making of music with the technology that we have today, there's so many options, so many ways to cut the cake, so to speak. When you started with Electronica, with that project that turned into 2 albums, what did you really want to do apart from working with these other people? What was the technological achievement of making this music and these albums?
These are very interesting questions.
Finally, right?
Questions. The two points you really raised, and they are very interesting points. The collaboration process. How do you collaborate these days in days where we have most of the time people are featuring artists in their album, and it means that they're sending files to people they would never meet, they would never talk to, and more sometimes for marketing reasons than anything else. In the case of Electronica, I really wanted to gather around me people who have been a source of inspiration to me on different generations, 4 generations since I started. And then also physically sharing the creative process with them. And so I traveled a lot. It took me 5 years to do these 2 albums, because actually at the beginning it was like for a birthday party. You invited friends and you don't know how many people will come, and then they all said yes. So I ended with 2.5 hours of music. I said, my God, I can't do 1 album of 2.5 hours. In days where the focus time of anybody is 1 minute on YouTube, it's going to be challenging. And then I decided to divide this project in 2 albums, like as we said last time, Kill Bill 1 and Kill Bill 2. I mean, and with people, I mean, for me it has been a really fantastic initiation journey, because I spent a lot of time here in LA. And working with great people such as Hans Zimmer and Moby and John Carpenter and Gary Newman. I mean, British guy, but living here, and with Vince Clarke and Laurie Anderson in New York, with Boys Noise, Tangerine Dream in Germany, with Pete Townsend and Massive Attack and Fat Buttons, the Pet Shop Boys, Gary, and lots of British people from that scene, and also people such in France like Air and M83 and Gessa Feldstein and lots of different people. And it has been very interesting to spend some time in studios, because electronic musicians, we are like painters in our atelier. I mean, it's quite a solitary process working in your home studio. I mean, when you are in a rock band or a jazz band, I mean, you are playing with musicians every day. For electronic musicians, like a painter or writer, you are in your atelier almost on your own. And I must say that I've been really impressed by all these great artists. I mean, opening their studio and you know, it's like I mean, being naked in front of someone, because you are actually sharing your secrets, your habits, and it's I learned a lot, and I must say that I mean, this nomination at the Grammy is it's their nomination as much as mine, even if it's my album. And I really learned a lot. And to answer to your second question briefly about the limitations of technology, when I started Oxygen, I had very limited equipment for both reasons, because not a lot of equipment was available, and also had the financial limitation. These instruments were quite expensive. And but it's, you know, arts, any kind of art form is made of limits. I mean, limitations are the most important thing in art, in any kind of art form. And the trap with technology today is actually, since our conversation, probably, and partly because of NAMM starting tomorrow, 1,000 softwares have been released, and they will be probably obsolete from most of them by the end of the week. And if you start to be trapped with this, you lose yourself, and you become archivists instead of doing music. And my advice for a young musician would be, okay, choose carefully one plugin, one synth, whatever, and just stick to it at least for 6 months or 1 year, because what you can, I mean, the only interesting music you can do, it will come from yourself. It's not going to come from your instrument. So just try to get stuck to it, because it's the only way for you to express and to find in yourself what you can do, which could be obviously different from your neighbor. And whatever the technology is, actually, this is the same thing. I did, after Electronica, this album Oxygen 3, and maybe we'll talk about this briefly, but after this massive production of Electronica involving lots of artists, and we're talking about Air, but also with Hans Zimmer, which is not the most minimalist musician in the world. I mean, we ended with tracks of 100 piece of music, songs of 100 tracks. And with the first Oxygen, the Oxygen has been done on 8 tracks, and in 6 weeks. So for this new Oxygen, I said after Electronica, I would like to go back to a kind of minimalist approach by lock myself up in the studio for 6 weeks, and just say, okay, I'm not having more than 8 elements per track. And it's a very interesting process these days. I mean, to less is more, as we know, for everything. Yeah. This is difficult these days, because we all have the tendency to put, yes, I put this more and more and more. It's like in cooking, you know, a little more salt, a little pepper, and after it's disgusting, you know. So you
well, that's when you just pour more wine in, and
that's right. And then you forget everything.
Hope for the best. I think that one of the things you must have realized from the process of all those collaborations, I hope you realized, was how revered and respected and admired you are as a musician and as somebody who trailblazed electronic music.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Because as you said, you invited all these people thinking perhaps half of them would show up, and they all wanted to do it, and that has to be that has to be fulfilling to understand that your work has affected and impacted people that way.
You know, it's very difficult. I never realized that, but actually, what I could say is actually what in this collaboration project. I mean, I think if some people are kind enough to say that I can be of any influence to them, they are also an influence to me. A good friend of ours, Moby, I mean, for me, Moby is somebody, for instance, who has, like every other artist in this project, I'm just thinking loud now about how we did this session here in this town with Moby. I remember that, you know, what makes the style of a musician? We all, I mean, musicians it's a strange job we have. I mean, our job is making the air vibrating. And it's invisible. It makes you very humble because it's nothing actually. But and depending on how you make the air vibrating, you can create boredom, you can create the desire of moving your body till the end of the night, or being in tears, or smiling, and it's just a slight different way of making the air vibrating. And every musician is making the air vibrating in its own way. And talking about Moby, I remember when we started to work together, he just did the very simple D minor, 3 notes on the keyboard, like any kids of 5 years old could do, and it was Moby. And it was, we call, the instant recognizable of someone, the style. And it's true that you hear 30 seconds of Moby, 30 seconds of Air, or Massive Attack, or Hans Zimmer, or John Carpenter. I mean, you know instantly it's them and nobody else. And this is not something that technology can give you. It's coming from
that guy who's taking pictures for people.